Hello, hello. This is Week by Week. I'm Celeste, and this is the birth story part 2. I'm going to be honest with you. I am so tired, like truly exhausted. But we're here and we're doing it and we're going with it. Today's episode starts off with a voice memo Dave and I recorded in the hospital the night my son was born, and then I'll jump right back in after that. So let's do this. We have our sweet son. Labor was insane, and I definitely, as I was just talking about with Dave, had a moment where I was like, I don't think I can do this. And our OBGYN said, that's the moment where you know you're close. Ring of fire, which I'll define later, very real, very painful. Wasn't expecting, but it was helpful that it happened, that she was like using her fingers to help open me up as I was pushing. What are other takeaways from this experience? It was so painful. Transition is real.
I was just about to open my mouth and say that transition is very real. It went from my wife to a woman.
Wild woman.
A wild woman.
It was because I went from 6 centimeters to 9.5 centimeters. Pretty quickly. And I had like a little bit of rest time, and then it was like, whoa. And then I was nervous that my doctor wasn't going to be there in time for the baby's arrival. But
she made it.
She made it.
And now he is laying in Celeste's arms, having just fed little sweet one.
We'll do an update about transition and all of our takeaways at some point.
Yeah.
Look at this beautiful boy.
Love you, buddy.
Love you, buddy.
He has little blonde eyelashes.
He does. He's a little blondie with curly hair and blue eyes right now. Oh, sweet one.
Love you, buddy.
Love you, buddy.
Great job, Mama.
Great job,
incredible. Daddy. On another episode, I will brag on her.
Oh, my gosh.
Because she was a total rock star.
It is a wild experience, but then you do get the best thing in the world. Yes, we do. Look at you. I think he's dreaming. Okay, so I just wanted to pop in to talk about a couple things that I mentioned in the voice memo. Ring of fire, let's define it. According to Google, ring of fire is crowning. So it is the part in the birthing process when the baby's head becomes visible in the birth canal and you are fully dilated. This feeling was unlike anything I had ever felt before. It does feel sort of fiery, and then also, honestly, sort of indefinable, which is not a great way to describe something, but it was unlike any sensation I had ever felt before. And it does almost feel like there is a circle because you are stretching around it, the head. In that moment when I really started to feel that feeling, I really did have the thought of, is this going to happen? Is my body even going to be able to do this? Because it feels in the moment sort of insurmountable. But it worked out. We pushed through it. And also the interesting thing about the mind is that once you are on the other side of birth, your brain starts to delete the experience, or at least some of the memories of the pain. And I definitely think that as I'm getting further away, it's harder to call upon the actual sensations of the experience. The other definition I wanted to pop in and define was transition. And transition, again, according to Google, is the final phase of the first stage of labor following early labor and active labor. So at this point, you progress from 7 to 10 centimeters and often in less than an hour. That was definitely my experience. I went from, I think, like 6.5 to 10 like that. It felt like it flew by. And the word transition means your body's making the shift from opening the cervix to beginning the baby's descent. This is also the moment that everyone told me your real animalistic side can come out, and you don't quite know how you're going to respond. And some women try to actually get up during this part and kind of want to leave. This kind of fleeing instinct comes in. And some women, the joke is like, this is when you call that you want a divorce, or, crazy things come out of your mouth. For me, I kept lifting my hand in the air when I go through these really intense contractions. And I kept looking to Dave and I kept saying, I don't know what I need, but I think I need something. I don't know what I need, but I think I need something. And then later on, as it got more and more intense, I kept saying, I just need it to pause for a second. I just need it to pause for a second, which obviously it doesn't. And, it's probably good that it doesn't, because once you start, I think it's, you want to push through, literally and figuratively. So those are the two things from the voice memo I wanted just to fill in the gaps about. We touch on this coming up, but jumping back in, because this transition for me happened so quickly, when I went from 6.5, my nurse didn't come back in until I was at 9.5 centimeters. And by that point, I was like, I need to push. Everything in my body was telling me to push, and I couldn't stop it. So the nurse came in at 9.5 centimeters, called my doctor, but it was around 5 something, and this is rush hour. And she hadn't left her office. The midwife and the nurse got me in position, and I started pushing before my doctor even got there. So we were really nervous that my doctor wasn't going to get there in time. And I remember saying, like, I just want my doctor. I just want my doctor. But she made it. So that's kind of where we're picking up now. I'll let the next section of audio tell the rest of the story. But yeah, it was really intense.
Yeah. I think it was about 10 rounds, and so that I think it worked out to a little less than an hour, I want to say, which, all things being considered, is
not too bad.
Yeah, a pretty good amount.
I mean, it was unmedicated.
Okay. That's what I was just about to say. This is the point where I get to shine a spotlight on my badass rock star wife. It was always in her birth plan to try and do it without an epidural or drugs of that type.
If possible.
The way that everything went after the scare with his heartbeat, the only thing that you did do after your water was broken is you had a small dose of a painkiller, but that type of painkiller wears off within an hour or two.
1 hour. And you can't have it, you can't have it too close to when you give birth.
Right.
And so that was
like the point of no return. But even after that dose, which was pretty closely to when you started to transition, not once were you like, give me the drugs. Not once did you do the, like, again, stereotypical, TV movie thing of just like, oh my, just give me the drugs,
well,
put it in my arm, or like any of that stuff.
They told us when we reached the point of, like, if you were going to do an epidural, do an epidural now.
Right.
And so
and they did, and they walked us through it, and they talked about it. But you were steadfast in not wanting that. But then you also, after that, you just stuck to it. And I was shocked. And not because I didn't think you could, but I was just like, everything that I'm witnessing, everything that I'm aware of, trying to think about pain thresholds in my own self and in my own body, I don't know how you could possibly do it. And you did. And, there was a lot of positive surprise amongst the nurses over the next couple days. And you were a total badass.
Aww. I was surprised how much they were like, and you did it without an epidural.
Yeah.
But it was, for me, it felt... My rationale was, this is such a wild experience, and the, like, science mind of myself wanted to feel and go through. For me, to each their own, first of all. Let me just say that, front load it. Everybody knows that I am like, whatever you want to do is perfect. But for my own curiosity, I wanted to feel what that whole experience was throughout as much as possible. And the other thing was, I had heard that through the pushing side of things, it can lower the risk of tearing. You can really listen to, like, or feel to some degree, like, what your baby is doing, what you need to do. And so you have a little bit more, I guess, mind-body connection because you can feel. So it just felt like something that I wanted to try to do, with the absolute caveat that I said to myself, like, There will be no shame, no disappointment, no nothing if I choose to do it, to choose to get an epidural, because I've never been in this experience before. And whatever birth makes sure he's the healthiest and then keeps me healthy is the absolute right birth for me.
Yeah, you were very healthy about it.
So I'm pushing, pushing, pushing. Like I said, I don't necessarily know the moment that he is out. But next thing I know, I have this baby on my chest and I am hearing his cry. And I cannot tell you the relief of like just hearing his cry and his voice. That was just absolutely incredible. And then like, it is so surreal to just have this like warm little being on you. And like, he had like long enough hair that his hair looked wavy from the fluid. And like, it was just like, it's just such an absolutely incredible, strange, surreal, profound moment. Mm-hmm. And apparently he peed on me immediately. But you know what? I had no idea. I mean, granted, there's a lot going on with me too. Side note, this is actually just funny. I looked to my doctor and the front of her smock just looked like blood spray. Like it looked like a crime scene blood spray. Like it was just like, whoa. And then the other little funny thing that happened to me while I was giving birth, which we read could happen, where it was like, oh, I can't wear clothes anymore. And I ripped off my gown.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I just was like, I need to be absolutely naked. I think like the most animalistic side of me came out. Then we went right into some really nice skin-to-skin time. And we had that golden hour after birth where I just held him on my chest and got to just kind of like sit in the experience. Well, that's not entirely true. There was one thing that had to happen before that, and that is do you call it birth of the placenta? I had to expel the placenta, but I don't know how you'd phrase that. But I don't really remember too much about that sensation other than that there was some cramping, a little bit of hurting, but it really was not bad comparatively, of course. And during it and after it, they're massaging your uterus area. I think it helps both to get everything out and also to help get the blood to stop flowing. So you're not like continuing to lose a bunch of blood, because you lose a ton of blood when you give birth, which is also crazy.
That's why you have so much of it adding while you're pregnant.
It's wild. So we had golden hour.
Well, we took him to get weighed and have his first little test.
Was it after golden hour though?
No, it's before, I think.
I don't remember the order, to be honest with you, because I'm pretty sure you have golden hour first. And this is crazy that our memories might be different because it just shows like what the swirl it is. Because I think then they come in and do all the tests after that, give you an hour to bond with your baby. But I could be wrong.
You know, yeah. I don't remember if they just went and did it right away while they were doing the placenta. And then we brought him back over. You're
right. I guess they might have done something because did you have the cord by me?
Oh, yeah. He was on you.
Okay, so I think there was golden hour first because Dave cut the cord, and then what did that feel like?
It was like rubbery and like, I mean, they gave me those crazy like surgery scissors, which I had heard of. A friend of mine who has kids accidentally nicked the finger of the doctor.
Oh my God.
With them. So I was like, really not going to let that happen. But it was harder to cut than I expected it to be. And I was also like jittery and so excited. Of course. But it was rubbery, and it was more substantial than I expected it to be. You know, more of like oh, this is really put together. This is sturdy.
It
was sturdier than I thought it was going to be.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I did ask to take a look at the placenta. I mean, it's not the most appealing thing. It looks like an organ. I mean, it's really wild that your body is able to grow this entire organ and then birth it out. And so that was definitely interesting to see. We did choose to bank his cord blood and save the tissue. So that's something we just from our research and it just seemed like it was something that we were interested in doing.
Yeah. To me, my reason for really wanting to do it was more forward looking because it's potentially helpful to him down the line if there's any health issue where stem cells or cord blood cells could be useful to him. And then it also could potentially be helpful to siblings.
Right.
So that was, to me, was the main reason to try it. Not totally perfected science, not a immediate benefit, but the research that I did, it felt like
have
it. Again, it's not a necessity.
No.
But it was something that doing the research, we felt like it was something to just have as an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do believe that he stayed on me because he was just like under a blanket on me with his little hat on. It's so sweet. Then they come in and they do the weighing and the tests and things like that. Now, this was annoying. So they weighed him. It's all in the room. And Dave is by his side the whole time. Anytime he was like more than 3 feet away from me, Dave was like on it. So they weigh him. He weighs 5.
Do his little Apgar tests and
5 pounds.
The initial one was 513 or 512. Yeah.
512. So he's 5 pounds, 12 ounces. And he was 19.8 inches.
Right.
And so because of
that was the initial. Because
of this, they had to monitor his blood sugar since he was a little guy. So we also were getting some little foot pricks. So I'm just going to jump us ahead for a second to go down the line of this story. And later that day, he didn't end up having his first poop until the last day we were at the hospital. Right. So there can be some weight difference immediately based on the baby's weight just because of that. Is it meconium?
Meconium, yeah.
Poop. So he didn't have that. And they weighed him again at the end of the night, and he jumped.
Not even the end of the night, like 3 hours later.
Okay, sure. Well, this is why I say the end of the night. He was born at 7:25. So for me, after a long night, it felt like, later on in the night, they weighed him, and he was up to 6'4". And
6'5".
Was it 6'5"?
Yeah. And this was in
the nursery.
This was in the nursery where it's much more exact equipment, multiple nurses, a whole team doing it.
And Dave went with him.
And I was with him. And they told me, oh, yeah, they've been having issues with some of the scales in the individual labor and delivery rooms. And
so we didn't get an accurate weight after all of that.
And then our pediatrician.
No, our pediatrician.
It was our pediatrician said, oh, yeah, I had the same thing happen with another one of my patient babies like a couple days before. So weirdly, officially, on a lot of the stuff that is like tracking him, he was like very much smaller than he actually was, because it's impossible for a child to gain, what was that?
Almost half a pound?
Half a pound. Like 11 ounces. Like, no. More than half a pound.
More than half a pound.
Like, that's impossible.
So that was frustrating.
And it was also like, then they, measured his length, and it was even a little bit bigger on that too. It was like over 20. Like, I think it was like 20.2 or something.
So the moral of the story is we don't know. He was 5'13", 2 days after he was born, because they always drop weight after they're born.
There's no question that he was 6 pounds, 5-ish, when he was born.
So for his pediatrician appointment, we know he was 5'13", and that's kind of like the official weight that we have, at least from that point. But his birth weight was bigger than what was reported. Yeah.
And that's not cool, because he was fine. He was healthy. His Apgar test, he was great. I mean, he was like,
I think it was
it's impossible to get 100%, and he was like the one step below 100%.
Yeah, I think it's out of 10, and I think he was like 9.
9 out of 10, exactly.
Anyway, so we don't have a great answer on that, but all in all, as far as everything could have gone, besides that one really scary moment, it was great. It was really, I mean, I also was really struck by the night we were in our room. This is still at the hospital. He's lying in his bassinet, and Dave and I are just talking, and it's probably like, I don't know, 1 a.m. And I just was like so calm. I just felt this like amazing sense of calm, and I can't even describe how powerful I felt. Like, it was just one of those things where I was like, I felt so inside of my body and so inside of my mind and so strong. Like, it was such a spectacular feeling. And it's something I've really thought about since then, of like, as I'm on my own journey to be nicer to myself, remembering and recalling that feeling of feeling so in my own skin and so happy to be there. So felt very profound.
Yeah.
A couple things from that night. First of all, we had an incredible team.
Oh,
okay.
Boy.
Everybody out there who is going to try to pee after you give birth, fuck, it hurts. Like, it's just awful. And like, they said I had a less than a 1st-degree tear. So all things considered, and she said my pelvic floor was strong, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to those dates that I was eating like crazy. I know that's not the science, but I was like, okay, well, this is why you start doing Kegels when you're 12 years old. But all things considered, I felt like I was okay down there. They give you ice packs, and I was living on ice packs and like a low dose painkiller for my entire time in there in the hospital. But oh my God, it was so painful to pee. I don't even know how to describe it. And then they ended up giving me some numbing stuff because it was just like excruciating to pee, which is not a surprise because it's like putting urine into a fresh wound. But Jesus, I cannot tell you how painful that was. But besides that, it was a really peaceful night. It felt very wild to sleep with him outside of me and like having him next to me. I had, at first when I tried to kind of finally close my eyes, it was like 3 a.m. and they come in so frequently to do tests and check on things. And so I felt really calm knowing the nurse had eyes on him throughout that experience. But it was just like, I had a moment where I was like, how am I even supposed to sleep if I don't, I can't feel him moving in my body anymore. So that was really wild. And then one thing that started off on a great note was I ended up having a lot of colostrum.
Yes.
And that was I was really pleased about. We had a lactation consultant come in, and because he was a smaller guy, we had some more focus from the lactation consultant. So that was really nice. And I would say breastfeeding was not terrible, but also not super easy. It was kind of somewhere in between where we were both trying to get the hang of it. Yeah. But he definitely was interested and trying to latch, and I was trying to find the right position. At one point, I pumped a little bit of the colostrum, and they were kind of surprised by how much came out. So that was just a really great feeling to have, because that's such an unknown.
They have no idea.
Yeah, and you don't, and it's just like this kind of like, well, I hope this works out, and if it doesn't, there are other options. I think
even before you started doing that, they were like, you may not have any, and that's fine, or very little, like it might be a couple drops, and that's okay because it's really powerful. And
exactly,
they don't
need
little bit helps.
And his belly is so, they take like a thimble full, and then they're full at that point. So it was just so incredible to see him and to start to get to know him. And he's like such a chill baby. Yeah. It's been, so cool even that first night to start to just find out who this little guy is. And we did something where Dave and I individually wrote letters to him. And then we had my mom, dad, sister, and Dave's mom all write letters to him as well. Nobody read anybody else's. And Dave and I read our letters and our parents' letters to him that first night. And it was so touching. And so, I'm actually going to cry if I think about it. But it was such a special way to feel like we were doing something as this new little family, and to share these feelings with him, and to have a moment where I was pregnant still and think about what that would be like. And then to be living in that moment was really cool. So yeah, really special.
I'm really glad we did that.
Me too.
To my son, welcome to the world, my sweet boy. You will already know this from being inside Mom, but you are so deeply loved. From the moment we knew you were coming, that love was so deep and so true. We even loved you before that, when you were even just a spark between us. Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
My sweet little Dash. I want to start by saying it has been an honor to grow you and carry you in my belly for the last 9 months. I'm honored to be your mama, and I love you fiercely. As I sit in anticipation while you dance in my belly, I want to write to you so you can know me a little as I am now. You have been with me since I was in the womb. Isn't that crazy? I've carried you since a little after I was created. That might gross you out now, but I hope someday you can appreciate that you were a dream that I've carried with me my entire life.
I'm going to end this episode here. And this also ends season 1 of Week by Week. I am full of so much gratitude, and I am also very tired, which I think is just going to be the general mode of operating for a while. But we're here and we're doing it. We will be picking up with season 2 and more episodes and interviews and updates and all that fun stuff very, very soon. More to come. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Week by Week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Week by Week Podcast and visit our blog at weekbyweekpodcast.com. Check out the show notes for more information about our guests and additional resources I used and referenced during this episode. This podcast was produced during the COVID-19 pandemic and recorded remotely. Our show today was produced by me, Celeste Busa, and Dave Hill, and edited by Douglas Sarine and Colleen Beasley. Week by Week is a Gumption Pictures production.